I am Paige Ramsey, 28, and literally last weekend my rep as the family's rock? Yeah, it totally backfired. The $18,000 I'd scraped together for a home down payment, pinching pennies for years, it blew up into a full-on family meltdown at our so-called reunion dinner. My younger sister Amanda straight up stole every cent, and when I called her out, the room went dead silent. "You're tearing us apart," my mom Darlene yelled with my dad Vernon, nodding like I was the villain. But here's the tea. Their betrayal didn't break me, it lit a spark. I'm not just pushing back, I'm about to flip the script and change everything. Drop a comment telling me where you're watching from, hit subscribe, and stay with me for the most satisfying stand you'll ever hear. Looking back, it's almost wild. You wouldn't believe what I'll do once that truth hits the fan. I've always been the reliable one, the accountant who balanced everyone's chaos. Amanda, 24, was the golden child, all charm and excuses. My parents ate it up, ignoring how I kept the family grounded. That dinner, though, cracked it all open. I'd found my savings account drained 2 days earlier, $18,000, gone. My bank traced it to Amanda's account. When I confronted her privately, she smirked, saying, "You didn't need it yet." My stomach dropped. I expected her to fess up, maybe cry. Instead, she shrugged, like my life's work was her pocket change. At the dinner I laid it out, voice steady but hands shaking under the table. Amanda stole my savings. I held up the bank statement, the evidence undeniable. Darlene gasped, but not at Amanda. At me. "Why are you airing this now?" she snapped. Vernon crossed his arms, muttering about family unity. Amanda just stared at her plate, picking at her mashed potatoes, not even denying it. My brother Lyle, 26, tried to change the subject, joking about his new job. I felt invisible, my pain a nuisance to their perfect evening. I'd sacrificed nights out, vacations, even new shoes to save that money. It was my escape from renting, my future. And they expected me to swallow it? No. I felt my resolve harden, like a knot tightening in my chest. I wasn't just fighting for the money, I was fighting for me. For once I'd make them see me. I'd make them face the truth, no matter how messy it got. This wasn't about harmony anymore, it was about justice. The sting of that dinner wasn't new, it was just louder. Growing up, I was always the shadow in Amanda's spotlight. I'd sit at the kitchen table, 12 years old, showing Darlene my straight-A report card, my fingers smudging the paper from nerves. She'd nod, distracted, then gush over Amanda's dance recital, pinning her glittery costume photo on the fridge. "You're our practical one, Paige," Vernon would say, like it was a compliment, while Amanda's trophies crowded the mantel. My mathlete medals? Shoved in a drawer. I'd bite my lip, forcing a smile, thinking if I worked harder, they'd see me. By high school, I was juggling part-time jobs and honor roll, saving for college while Amanda flunked classes but charmed her way into everyone's hearts. At 16, I won a regional accounting competition. First place, $500 prize. I rushed home, check in hand, to find Darlene planning Amanda's comeback party after she'd failed another semester. "That's nice, honey," Darlene said, barely glancing at my award, her hands busy frosting cupcakes. Vernon clapped Amanda's shoulder, proud of her resilience. I stuffed the check in my pocket, my throat tight, and went to my room. That night, I vowed to build something they couldn't ignore. College was my escape. I earned a scholarship, worked nights, and graduated with honors. At the ceremony, I scanned the crowd for my family. Only Lyle showed, clapping awkwardly, while Darlene texted excuses about Amanda's emergency haircut. I gripped my diploma, the weight of it grounding me. I'd done it alone. But every holiday, every visit home, it was the same. Amanda's drama dominated. Her new boyfriend, her failed auditions, her big plans, my promotions, my steady life, background noise. I'd clench my fists under the table, nodding along, my resentment simmering. Looking back, those moments built the wall between us. I stopped expecting praise, but I never stopped wanting it. That's why the $18,000 hurt so much. It wasn't just money, it was years of proving myself, of hoping they'd finally care. At that dinner, their dismissal wasn't a surprise, but it was the final straw. I saw it clearly. They'd never value me unless I forced them to. My fingers twitched, itching to grab a pen, to draft something, anything to make Amanda pay. I wasn't the quiet kid anymore, swallowing their neglect. I was done being invisible. The $18,000 wasn't just a number, it was my blood and sweat. For 5 years I'd clawed my way toward that down payment, Every cent a battle. Fresh out of college, I took a junior accountant job, $42,000 a year, barely enough for rent and loans. Nights I'd sit at my wobbly kitchen table, budgeting on a spreadsheet, cutting cable, skipping dinners out. I'd brew cheap coffee, my eyes burning, to avoid cafe runs. My friends partied, I declined, saying I was busy, my pride stinging as I packed PB&J for lunch. That money was my ticket to stability, a home, something mine. I'd started saving at 23, inspired by a coworker's housewarming. Her place wasn't fancy, but it was hers. Walls painted her way, no landlord's rules. I wanted that. So I worked overtime, took freelance gigs, my fingers cramped from typing. By 26, I had $10,000. I'd check my savings app, heart racing, watching the number grow. Darlene called it obsessive. Amanda laughed, saying I'd die alone in a boring house. I ignored them, my goal sharper than their jabs. Last year, I hit $18,000. I celebrated alone, ordering takeout, grinning at my bank app like it was a love letter. Then Friday, it shattered. I logged in to transfer funds for a mortgage pre-approval. Balance, $47. My stomach lurched. I refreshed, thinking it was a glitch. Nothing. Hands shaking, I called the bank. They traced it. $18,000 wired to Amanda's account, her name blatant in the records. I sat on my couch, staring at the wall, my breath shallow. How? She'd hacked my password, the bank said, from a shared family laptop I'd left logged in at home. My fault, technically. My fury boiled, not at myself but at her nerve. I called Amanda. Why? I demanded, voice low. She giggled, then sighed. I needed it for my boutique idea, you weren't using it. Her nonchalance was a slap. I pictured her smirking, twirling her hair, no remorse. My savings, my years of sacrifice were her play money. I hung up, my hands trembling so hard I dropped the phone. That's when I knew. This wasn't a mistake. It was theft, and I wouldn't let it slide. I opened my laptop, started researching legal options, my jaw tight. Amanda thought she'd won. She was wrong. The night before the family dinner, I paced my tiny apartment, my stomach in knots. Tomorrow I'd face them, Darlene, Vernon, Amanda, Lyle, at their annual Harmony gathering, the one I dreaded. My laptop glowed on the coffee table, open to a legal advice forum about theft. I'd spent hours researching, my eyes gritty, scribbling notes, police report, small claims court, repayment contract. My savings were gone, but I wasn't. I'd make Amanda face consequences, even if it tore the family apart. The thought of their smug faces, Darlene's sighs, Vernon's lectures, made my fists clench. I wasn't ready, but I had to be. I sank onto the couch, staring at the bank statement I'd printed, Amanda's name glaring in black ink, $18,000 wired out like it was nothing. My mind flashed to her texts, all casual. Dinner at 6, don't be late. No hint of guilt. I imagined her at Darlene's laughing while I sat here, heart pounding. I'd called Lyle earlier, testing the waters. Amanda messed up, he said, voice low, but Mom's already spinning it as your fault. I hung up, my throat tight. They were circling wagons, and I was the outsider. I stood, pacing again, my socks scuffing the worn carpet. The dinner was at Darlene and Vernon's, their beige dining room a stage for Amanda's charm. I pictured the table, Darlene's overcooked roast, Vernon's bad jokes, Amanda twirling her fork, dodging accountability. I'd bring the bank statement, lay it out, but would they listen? I stopped, catching my reflection in the dark window, jaw set, eyes sharp. I barely recognized myself. Not the practical Paige they dismissed, but someone ready to fight. I grabbed my coat, needing air. Outside, the chilly night stung my cheeks. I walked past lit-up houses, families inside, and envied their ease. My phone buzzed. Darlene's reminder. Family first, Paige. I snorted, shoving it in my pocket. Family first? Not when they defended a thief. I stopped at a park bench, my breath fogging. Tomorrow, I'd walk in, head high, and demand justice. No more swallowing their excuses. I drafted a repayment plan, $500 a month, signed and notarized. If Amanda refused, I'd file that police report. This wasn't just about money, it was about respect. I headed home, my steps firm, ready to face the storm. I stepped into Darlene and Vernon's dining room, the air thick with roast beef and tension. The table was set with their chipped china, Amanda already holding court, her laugh grating as she tossed her hair. I clutched the bank statement in my purse, my fingers brushing the folded paper for courage. Darlene hugged me, her smile tight, and whispered, "Don't ruin this, Paige." I nodded, jaw clenched, and took my seat across from Amanda, who barely glanced up from her phone. Vernon carved the roast, his knife scraping, while Lyle fidgeted, avoiding my eyes. The first jab came fast. "Still crunching numbers, Paige?" Vernon asked, passing the potatoes, his tone implying it was cute, not impressive. I forced a smile, my fork digging into my plate. "Yeah, keeps me busy." Amanda snorted, muttering, "Boring." Loud enough for everyone to hear. Darlene chuckled, like it was a family joke, and changed the subject to Amanda's boutique dreams. I gripped my napkin under the table, my knuckles white, as Amanda rambled about her vision, no mention of my stolen $18,000. Then Darlene turned to me, her eyes narrowing. "You're so serious lately, Paige, loosen up." Her voice was syrupy, but the dig landed hard. Lyle tried to pivot, asking about my job, but Vernon cut in. "She's fine, just likes her spreadsheets." They laughed, and I felt my face burn, the room shrinking. I pictured the years I'd spent saving, skipping vacations while Amanda blew cash on clothes. My hand twitched toward my purse, itching to slap the bank statement on the table. Amanda leaned back, smirking. "Paige, you should try having fun sometime. Maybe you'd get it." "Get what? Her entitlement?" I bit my tongue, tasting blood as Darlene nodded like Amanda was dropping wisdom. The condescension was a knife, twisting with every word. I stared at my plate, the peas blurring, my resolve wavering. Could I do this? Confront them here with their smug unity? Then I caught Amanda's eye, her smug, unapologetic stare. My spine stiffened. They thought I'd stay quiet like always. Not tonight. I took a slow sip of water, steadying my hands, knowing the real fight was coming. I just had to survive their jabs a little longer. The dinner table grew quieter, the clink of forks louder as the roast dwindled. I felt the weight of every glance, my pulse hammering. I'd waited long enough. I cleared my throat, my voice cutting through Amanda's chatter about her boutique. "We need to talk about my $18,000, I said, eyes locked on her. The room froze. Amanda's fork hovered midair, her smirk fading. Darlene's mouth tightened, and Vernon set down his knife, slow like I'd dropped a bomb. Amanda recovered fast, rolling her eyes. "God, Paige, let it go, it's just money." "Just money?" My nails dug into my palms. I pulled the bank statement from my purse, unfolding it with steady hands, and slid it across the table. "You stole it. From my savings, from my house." My voice was calm, but inside I was screaming. Lyle shifted, staring at his plate, while Darlene snatched the paper, scanning it like it might vanish. "Paige, this is family," Darlene snapped, tossing the statement down. "You don't drag us through this." Vernon nodded, his voice low. "Amanda made a mistake. You forgive and move on. For harmony." "Harmony?" I almost laughed. Amanda leaned back, arms crossed, not even pretending to care. "You're so dramatic," she muttered. My chest burned. They were circling, protecting her, like always. My sacrifice, years of scrimping, of saying no to life, was a mistake they expected me to eat. I leaned forward, voice sharp. "She broke the law. I'm not forgiving theft." Darlene gasped, hand to her chest like I'd slapped her. "You'd tear us apart over this?" she said, eyes wet. Vernon's face hardened. "You're being selfish, Paige. Family comes first." "Selfish?" I stared at them, my family, choosing Amanda's lies over my truth. Lyle finally spoke, voice small. "Maybe Amanda could pay it back?" Darlene shot him down. "She's trying. Paige's money obsession is the problem." I sat back, the room spinning. They'd made their verdict. I was the villain for demanding justice. My hands shook, but not from fear, from rage. They thought they could guilt me into silence, like when I was a kid, swallowing their neglect. Not this time. I saw Amanda's smug glance, Darlene's trembling lip, Vernon's crossed arms. They expected me to fold. Instead, I felt my resolve lock into place, cold and certain. I'd make them face this, no matter what it cost. I left the dinner table in silence, their words, selfish, dramatic, echoing in my head. Back at my apartment, I sat on the couch, the bank statement crumpled in my fist. My laptop glowed, open to a legal advice page I'd bookmarked. My family thought they could bury this, but I wasn't backing down. I grabbed a notepad, my pen scratching as I drafted a repayment contract. $18,000, $500 a month, Amanda's signature required. My hand shook, but my mind was clear. If she wouldn't agree, I'd take the next step. I wasn't bluffing. The next morning, I called the police non-emergency line, my voice steady despite my racing heart. "I'd like to report a theft," I said, explaining Amanda's unauthorized transfer. The officer was calm, asking for the bank records I'd already emailed. "This looks straightforward," she said. "We'll need to question her." I hung up, my stomach twisting. Filing a report against my sister felt like betrayal. But her theft was the real betrayal. I pictured Darlene's tears, Vernon's lectures, and pushed them away. This was about accountability. I texted Amanda the contract, my fingers hovering before hitting send. "Sign this, or the police move forward," I wrote. Her reply came fast. "You're insane." No apology, no remorse. I stared at her words, my jaw tight. Fine. I printed the police report form, filling it out at my kitchen table, each checkmark a small rebellion. My coffee went cold as I detailed the theft, my handwriting sharp. I wasn't just reclaiming my money, I was reclaiming my voice. By afternoon, I dropped the report at the station. The clerk's nod, a quiet validation. Driving home, I felt lighter, like I'd shed their expectations. Amanda would get a call soon, maybe a visit. Darlene and Vernon would lose it, but I was done protecting their harmony. I glanced at the contract on my passenger seat, unsigned. If Amanda thought I'd cave, she was wrong. I'd given her a chance. Now the law would handle it. For the first time in years, I wasn't the one compromising, I was the one setting terms. The police report was filed, and I knew the fallout was coming. 2 days later, Darlene called, her voice shrill through the phone. "Paige, how could you do this to Amanda?" I stood in my kitchen, gripping the counter, the smell of burnt toast lingering. She didn't ask about me, my loss, just Amanda's stress. I let her rant, my silence louder than her words. When she paused, I said, "She stole from me. You're defending a crime." The line went quiet, then she hung up. My hand trembled, but I felt steady inside, like a storm had passed. That evening, I drove to Darlene and Vernon's for the showdown I'd been dreading. They'd texted, demanding I fix this. I walked in, the air heavy with their disapproval. Amanda sat on the couch, arms crossed, her eyes darting away. Vernon stood by the fireplace, his jaw tight, while Darlene clutched a tissue, already sniffling. Lyle hovered near the door, looking like he wanted to bolt. I held the repayment contract, its edges creased from my grip, and set it on the coffee table. "You think this is a game?" I said, my voice low, pointing at the contract. "Amanda, you stole $18,000. The police are involved." Amanda scoffed, but her hands fidgeted. Darlene jumped in. "Paige, you're breaking our family." I turned to her, my patience gone. "No, you broke it by excusing her. All my life you've let her slide while I begged for scraps of respect." Vernon started. "Now, Paige," but I cut him off. "Enough. You've always chosen her. I'm done with your hypocrisy." I faced Amanda, her smug mask cracking. "Sign the contract or face charges," I said. She glared, but her lip quivered. Darlene sobbed. Vernon muttered about disgrace, but I didn't flinch. I'd spent years swallowing their dismissal, nodding through their favoritism. No more. I grabbed my coat, leaving the contract on the table. "You have until tomorrow," I said, walking out. The door clicked shut behind me, their stunned silence ringing in my ears. For once, I wasn't the one bending. I was the one standing tall. The drive home from Darlene and Vernon's left me drained, but I didn't want to be alone. I texted my friend Marla, who'd always been my rock, and she invited me to her place for pizza with our old college crew. Pulling up to her cozy duplex, I saw warm light spilling from the windows, laughter already leaking through the door. My shoulders relaxed for the first time in days. Inside, Marla hugged me tight, her curly hair tickling my cheek, and handed me a slice. "Spill everything," she said, her eyes sharp but kind. I sat on her worn couch, surrounded by Marla, Toby, and Gwen, my chosen family. They weren't blood, but they'd always shown up. I told them about Amanda's theft, the police report, and the showdown with my family's hypocrisy. My voice cracked when I mentioned Darlene's tears, Vernon's silence. Toby, usually all jokes, leaned forward, his beer untouched. "They're gaslighting you, Paige. You did the right thing." Gwen nodded, her bracelets jangling. "You're not the bad guy for wanting justice." Marla squeezed my hand, her nails painted electric blue. "We've got you," she said. I looked around, their faces soft in the lamplight, and felt a warmth my family never gave me. Back in college, when Darlene skipped my graduation, these three threw me a party, complete with a tacky crown. Now, they listened. No judgment, no excuses. Toby cracked a smile, offering me another slice. "You're a badass, Ramsey. Amanda's gonna regret this." I laughed, the sound surprising me. My family's betrayal still stung, but here I wasn't invisible. Marla's living room, cluttered with books and mismatched pillows, felt more like home than Darlene's dining room ever had. I took a bite of pizza, the cheese burning my tongue, and let their chatter wash over me. For years, I'd chased my family's approval, but these friends saw me, my strength, my hurt. As Gwen ranted about her own sibling drama, I realized I'd already found the family that mattered. They'd be there, no matter what came next. The next morning I woke to a text from Amanda. "I'll sign, okay? Chill." My heart thudded, but I didn't reply. Her words felt like a dodge, not surrender. I sat at my kitchen table, sunlight slanting through the blinds, and sipped my coffee, the mug warm in my hands. The police report was filed, the contract was out there, my line in the sand. But I needed more than Amanda's half-hearted promise. I needed boundaries that stuck. My family had walked over me for years, that ended now. I opened my laptop and drafted an email to Darlene, Vernon, and Lyle, my fingers steady on the keys. "I'm done with excuses," I wrote. "Amanda signs the contract, pays me back, or the police handle it. No more contact until this is resolved." I paused, my cursor blinking, then added, "I deserve respect, not your guilt trips." Sending it felt like dropping a weight. I leaned back, exhaling, the silence of my apartment grounding me. No more dinners, no more calls, no more pretending we were fine. By noon Darlene called, her voice shaky. "Paige, this is cruel," she said, like I'd wounded her. I gripped the phone, my knuckles pale. "Cruel was letting Amanda steal from me," I said. "You chose her side, I'm choosing mine." She stammered, but I hung up, my hands trembling. Vernon texted next, "Reconsider this for family." I deleted it. Lyle was the only one who didn't push, texting, "I get why you're doing this." It wasn't much, but it was enough to keep me from unraveling. I spent the afternoon reorganizing my desk, stacking papers, wiping down the wood, small acts to reclaim control. My family's voices still echoed, calling me selfish, but I pushed them out. I'd given them chances, they'd given me betrayal. Now, I'd protect my peace. If Amanda signed, fine. If not, the law would deal with her. Either way, I wasn't begging for their approval anymore. I glanced at Marla's text from last night. "You're unstoppable," and smiled. My new rules were set, and I'd hold them like a shield. A week later, Amanda signed the repayment contract, her signature shaky on the notarized paper I'd mailed her. She'd pay $500 a month, starting next week, or face charges. The police had made that clear. I sat in my apartment, the document in my hands, my thumb tracing the ink. It wasn't just about the money anymore. It was about rewriting the rules of our family. I'd spent years fading into their background, but this, holding Amanda accountable, forcing Darlene and Vernon to face their bias, was my way of reclaiming the Ramsey name on my terms. I called Lyle, the only one who'd shown a shred of support. We met at a quiet cafe, the kind with wobbly tables and too strong coffee. He fidgeted with his napkin, his eyes darting. "Mom and Dad are pissed," he said, voice low. "But Amanda's scared. She's working now, some retail gig." I nodded, stirring my latte, the foam swirling. "Good, she needs to grow up." Lyle hesitated, then added, "They're starting to see it, how they favored her." I raised an eyebrow, skeptical, but his small nod felt like a crack in the old dynamic. Back home, I started small steps to rebuild. I texted Amanda, not to forgive but to set terms. "Stick to the payments, no drama." She replied, "Fine," short but civil. Darlene and Vernon were trickier. I kept my distance, but when Darlene called, I answered. "We're sorry, Paige," she said, her voice wobbly. I didn't melt, but I listened. "Prove it," I said. "Respect my boundaries." She agreed, tentative, and I hung up, my chest lighter. It wasn't love yet, but it was a start. I looked around my apartment, the walls bare but mine. I'd use Amanda's payments to rebuild my savings, maybe even help others. I researched local financial literacy programs, thinking I could volunteer, teach kids what I'd learned the hard way. My family's name had been a weight, tied to favoritism and excuses. Now, I'd make it mean something. Honesty, accountability, strength. I smiled, tucking the contract away. For the first time, I felt like the one shaping our story. I stood in my apartment, sunlight filtering through the blinds, holding a check. Amanda's first $500 payment. It wasn't much, but it felt like a victory, a tangible piece of the justice I'd fought for. I set it on my desk next to a photo of me and Marla laughing at her place. My family's voices, Darlene's guilt, Vernon's lectures, Amanda's excuses had quieted, not gone but distant. I'd spent years chasing their approval, measuring my worth by their nods. Now, staring at that check, I realized my worth wasn't in their hands, it was in mine. I walked to the window, the city humming below. Months ago, I'd been the practical one, shrinking to fit their mold. Filing the police report, drafting the contract, walking out of their house. I'd broken that mold. Amanda was paying, Darlene and Vernon were listening, even if grudgingly. Lyle texted yesterday saying, "You changed things, Paige." Maybe I had. But the real change was in me. I didn't need their praise to feel whole. I'd proven I could stand up, not just for my $18,000, but for myself. I thought of Marla, Toby, Gwen, the ones who'd cheered me on. They'd shown me family wasn't blood, it was trust. I'd keep building with them, and maybe, slowly, with my blood family too. Amanda's payments would rebuild my savings, but I'd already rebuilt something bigger. My peace. I didn't hate my family anymore. I didn't need to. I'd found my strength, and that was enough. I sat on my couch, the check glinting in the light, and exhaled. The fight wasn't over. Boundaries would be tested. Old habits would creep. But I was ready. I wasn't the kid begging for their attention. I was Paige Ramsey, 28, accountant, fighter, and finally, enough. Have you ever had to stand up to someone you love, knowing it might break things before it heals? That's where I was, and maybe you've been there too. Share your story in the comments. I'd love to hear how you found your strength. If my journey resonated, please like, subscribe, and share it with someone who needs to hear it's okay to demand respect. You don't have to shrink to keep the peace. You can rewrite your story just like I did and find peace in your own worth. Keep fighting for you.